For centuries, Africa has been known as the Dark Continent, but a church in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia called Beza International is changing the narrative through its annual conference called Africa Arise. Pastor Z, the lead pastor of Beza International, talks about how the vision of Africa Arise was birthed out of his father, Dr. Beta Mengistu's personal encounter.
So he saw firsthand a lot of the missing pieces and the broken places of the continent, and that's what kind of spawned this idea of Africa Arise, like addressing the issues of Africa from spiritual as opposed to a political standpoint, because the idea, I guess, is that what God did for him personally by way of redeeming his body, his life, he kind of envisioned that for the continent as well. So my father experienced the power of God. As a sick boy, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and he was given 3 months to live. He began reading the scriptures for the first time, but in his desperation, he pushed through and he read John 10:10, which Jesus was speaking, says, "The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly." So when he read that, he just kind of, no preacher, no evangelist, he just kind of concluded that if Jesus came to give me life, I'm not gonna die. And immediately his body started responding. And it was just a divine moment where the Lord started a miraculous work in his life. My father spent about 25 years or so of his career in Bible translation and publishing. There's thousands of African languages, and he kind of had this picture: if every sick boy in Africa had access to the scriptures like I did, maybe they can experience the same thing that I did, which was, an encounter with the Lord. So he was very passionate about that. And it forced him to travel for much of my childhood across Africa. And in the 70s and 80s, that meant, Africa that was struggling with identity and democracy and what that looks like. So he saw firsthand a lot of the missing pieces and the broken places of the continent, and that's what kind of spawned this idea of Africa Arise, like addressing the issues of Africa from spiritual as opposed to a political standpoint.
How do we, when you come with the concept of Africa Arise, how do you change the mindset to get people to realize, okay, we have the spirit part, but how do we transition into getting it into the reality?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. Nehemiah wept over the broken walls of the city. And in Africa, we, I think, have yet to fully address the broken gates and the broken walls of our city. And I believe it's God's heart and it's God's intention, not just to touch us, but after he has touched us, through us, to touch society.
The Africa Arise conference has brought real change to the mindset of delegates across Africa. Dumi, a conference attendee and TV station owner from Botswana, shares how this gathering has shifted his thinking.
Africa Arise is saying, like in the name, that Africa must look for African solutions from Africa. And when I look at the amount of trade we do with the West or the East or whatever, and the amount of intra-African trade, it just doesn't make sense. Because if we just traded within ourselves, the continent wouldn't need to look outside. So for me, as somebody who's a Pan-Africanist, who always had a vision to do business across the continent, I also did have my prejudices, just about other African countries, like, I can't do business in Nigeria, or I can't do business in whatever I can do. But then you sit and you meet people from Nigeria and from who you wouldn't generally interact with in such an environment, because all you get to read about them is the negative things that you read in the media. So you sit and you meet with these people and wow, they're good people. They're people just like you, share the same values.
Women are also taking a lead in the Africa Arise movement. Mrs. Mengistu shares her vision for the event.
African woman is a strong woman. A strong woman. Many of the households of Africa is sustained by women. So many women pay so much, to their children, to hold the home, to hold the family. The African woman sacrifices a lot. And so for really Africa to change, the woman has to come up to express her gifting, and she needs to be empowered. And the future of Africa will be, I think, the future of youth and future of the women.
Now with Africa Arise, how have you seen the conference grow since it started?
The exciting thing for me is not just the great event, but the fruit of that, or what's come out of that. There's really redeemed thinking going on. Our young people have come up with the Young African Thinkers Convention, which is just, I'm so excited about this project, and they're actually coming up with African solutions for African problems as young people, where they see the problems on the ground. Much of the development work that's offered to Africa, it comes from a stuffy office in Geneva or New York. And therefore, it's based on research, which is hit and miss. But these kids, because they take the transport, because they go to the schools every day, they know what the problems are and where they are. And they have come up with outstanding solutions, outstanding ideas that really, really address some of the hurts and the problems of our societies, and come up with solutions for that.